Hi, welcome to Julius Bar. Today we're gonna mix a transparent espresso martini. So I talked about the espresso martini before and I proposed you my updated recipe about it. But today we are gonna make a transparent espresso martini inspired by a couple of famous bartenders. The cocktail itself is gonna be pretty simple, but to start making it we need first to distillate coffee. So if you're just interested in the recipe for the cocktail, skip ahead. I'm gonna put a chapter mark. Otherwise, stay with me and I'm gonna explain you how to get a decent result in distilling coffee. Normally my preference for coffee is some coffee made in a mocha machine like this, but I found out that I get better results in this case by using drip coffee. So I'm gonna start by boiling about half a liter of water. And while the water is boiling, I'm gonna tell you about the inspiration for this cocktail. I saw two great bartenders using this technique of distilling coffee. One of them is Kayama-san from Bar Benfidik, one of the best bartenders in the world. On the counter of his bar, he always has this glass contraption, which is a really simple distiller, which works with a candle at the bottom, ice on top. He puts in sometimes coffee, sometimes other herbs or spices, and he gets a distillation right there on the counter. The problem with that method is that you can get only a tiny amount, and to just get like a few milliliters of stuff, you're gonna have to wait like 1 hour or so. So that's why I got myself this big boy, which is actually really small for being a distiller. It's an air distiller. What it is, if you have never seen this, it's just a boiling pot at the bottom. On top there is a serpentine that goes around, cooled down by a fan. So the pot warms up whatever you put inside, the vapors, the steam comes up and it gets cooled down here, and then it drips out from here. This is basically what a pot still does. It's really simple. It actually has no control. You just plug it in, it starts and it goes. And one interesting thing about coffee is that it's actually not that easy to distill. Oh, it's ready. So let's get our drip going. So, as I was saying, I knew coffee distillation was possible. I didn't know how to do it. And I knew it was possible because beside Bar Benfidik and Kayama-san, also Matteo Zed, which is another great bartender from Rome, an expert in Amaro, he also has on his menu something that he calls Espresso Martini. And I'm gonna link the video where he makes it down below. Anyway, in his espresso martini he also uses some coffee distillate to make a transparent espresso martini. But searching online, it seems like people are freaking out about this thing. Somebody was asking on Reddit, how can I distill coffee? And people were just bashing him. You're stupid, coffee doesn't distill. What are you trying to do? And actually the guys from the whiskey tribe, Rex, once tried to distill coffee and he had some awful results.
That is gym sock feet. Wow.
So apparently there are a few challenges, and in reality there are a few challenges. We are gonna have to make cuts, because once we start distilling, the stuff that's gonna come out from this pot is not gonna be all good. There's gonna be some good and some pretty terrible stuff. Let's just wait for the drip to finish and let's measure how much coffee we got. Yeah, just a tiny bit short of half a liter of coffee. Now what we do, we just pour the content of this container in our air still. We close it possibly, and then we plug it in, and very good. Now we just wait, but we don't wait much because the coffee is already hot, so it's gonna start boiling really fast. What we wanna do is get rid of the really first few drops that start coming out, but we have to be careful because soon after that, after the few first drops, it's gonna actually come the best part of the distillation. It's gonna be the part which has the most flavor. It's a bit fruity and light, and we definitely want to capture that. So we want to get rid of the really first stuff that comes off, then start collecting right away. Then at some point during the distillation, the thing is gonna turn into burnt flavors, and at that point we are gonna start separating our distillation. So we're gonna have like a, what I will call the heart, like some really nice flavorful light distillate, and then we are gonna have a second part which is gonna be a bit darker and a bit less pleasant. But we're gonna need both because we are gonna use a bit of the second part, let's say the burnt flavor, to add character to the what I will call the hearts. As soon as it's gonna start dropping off some water, I'm gonna start the timer here, so you're gonna see how long it's gonna take.
A few minutes later.
Okay. Yeah, tastes like water now. But pretty soon it should be decent. Maybe one more second. Still a bit. Let's start getting this. So now we're gonna collect this for a while until it gets into the tails, which is like this burnt, unpleasant flavor. And then we're gonna switch container. Check every once in a while how the flavor is going. It tastes pretty watery, but once we use it in mixing, by shaking it, the flavor of the coffee is gonna express again. Now it's pretty decent actually. By the way the Matteo Z does it, he distills coffee together with a bit of Frangelico. Frangelico is the hazelnut liqueur. And I think that's a great idea because first of all you're gonna add a bit more flavor, and second, the alcohol you're distilling together with the coffee is gonna help preserve the flavors you get in the distillation for a bit longer time. The distillate we are doing right now is not gonna last a lot at all. Stored in the fridge it lasts about 1 day and then it starts losing flavor. By adding a bit of alcohol in the distillation process, you help preserve the flavors. But here's the big but: by doing so, you might be a felon. In most countries, you're not allowed to distillate alcohol, even for personal use, without a proper license. So that's why I'm keeping this 100% clean and just using coffee. It's starting to drift a bit. It's still not bitter, it's still pretty good. Actually, the coffee blend I'm using today might get better result than the one I used last time. Now it's starting to drift. This stuff we're gonna keep 100%, and then we will evaluate the quality of what we're gonna get from now on, and then maybe mix a bit in. It's turning bitter, but really slowly. I guess different blend of coffee gives different result. Yeah, now it's just water. Okay, so after 17 minutes I stop the process. Now let's compare our two cuts, what I call the heart, which is this one, and what I call the tails, which is this one. This is a bit more bitter, but not dramatically so. Let me add a tiny bit of this to this, so we get a bit more body. I think that's about fine. And there you go. Here is our coffee distillation. Now let's mix our cocktail. So most espresso martini will use vodka. I'm against vodka in general. So I would like to use this rum Planas by Diplomatico, which is perfect in this case. It's aged but it's transparent. It's 47% and I think it's actually the best product made by Diplomatico. I checked the sugar levels, is actually pretty dry. They just added like 2-3 grams of sugar I think per liter. So they've been kind of restrained in tricking this rum. And yeah, in general it's pretty good product. And I think I definitely prefer this to vodka. It's gonna give a nicer flavor. Then we go on with our coffee distillate, again 30 milliliters. And then you could even just shake it like this. It's gonna be a really hardcore cocktail. Pretty bitter and super dry, like really dry martini. But I would like to give this cocktail a bit more accessibility, a bit more nuanced flavor. So first of all, I'm gonna put 5 milliliters of rich simple syrup, which is made using 2 parts sugar and 1 part water. And for once I made simple syrup just using white sugar to make it as transparent as possible. And then we finish with 1 teaspoon of Absinthe, this Absinthe Portalier, which also is transparent instead of being green. One thing you could also do instead of Absinthe and a simple syrup is just using Sambuca. I did the same cocktail, substituting the 5 milliliters of simple syrup and the 5 milliliters of Absinthe for 10 milliliters of Sambuca, which is the Italian liqueur made with anise. The only problem is that it made the cocktail a bit foggy, and I would like the cocktail to be a bit less foggy, a bit more transparent. So that's why I chose Absinthe and simple syrup. It's gonna get a bit foggy anyway because Absinthe, like any anise-based liqueur, is gonna develop a louche, like even Ouzo, Pernod, and even Sambuca. Anyway, let's get some ice. And let's give this a good shake. This cocktail really needs to be shaken because we have to try to push in some air to revive the flavor of the coffee. Matteo Zed froze it. I'm not much for throwing, so I'm just gonna shake it. Let's double strain in our small glass. Yeah, it became a bit white anyway because of the Absinthe. Let's decorate with 1 bean of coffee, something I did even before in my black soul cocktail. Actually, a few seconds passed and it got a bit more transparent. The louche, the opaque white color of the Absinthe already disappeared. Anyway, I would like to call this, and I'm looking for your Espresso Martini, named after the great Beatles song from album Rubber Soul. Cheers! I think the coffee distillate today is a bit lighter than the one I made a couple days ago. It does change a lot, this distillate, based on the coffee you choose. And the anise flavor, it's a perfect match for the coffee. In fact, when we make caffè corretto in Italy, it's often made with Sambuca. Yeah, it's really good. The problem, today I didn't get as much coffee flavor as I would have liked. It was a bit less intense than on my previous choice. I would like to retry this with mocha coffee. The problem is that right now I have some coffee beans which are not really up to par with my expectations. The rum and the coffee and the absinthe kind of disappear in one thing. You cannot tell anymore which flavor is which. They merge together pretty nicely. So if you enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, comment down below. Hope you enjoyed the new adventures in distillations. I'm gonna do a lot more with this air still in the coming months and years. And hopefully I will see you soon. Cheers. I forgot to mention, distilling coffee, it takes out all the caffeine of the coffee. So this drink is effectively caffeine free except for the bean, which fell, but the bean itself will contain a pretty good amount of caffeine. But the drink doesn't. So you can drink it even late at night for people like me that cannot take caffeine in the evening because I cannot sleep anymore. So that's a plus.
I'm looking through you, you're not the same.